Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Teresa Lamb with MicroAccounting. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our Sage Intacct 2024 Release 4 webinar. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. So we do have all the lines muted. So if you have a question during this, please feel free to put that in the question or the chat pane, and we'll be monitoring that. And we'll try to answer those throughout. If it's something specific to your environment or kind of specific to your use of the system, we may take that offline and address that with you directly. So we'll make note of any questions that we don't get answered during the release or during the webinar. So with that, Nick Gorey on our team is going to do our presentation this morning. So I will turn it over to him and let him get started.
All right, thank you, Teresa. Hello, everybody. So yeah, Nick Gorey, doing the 2024 Release 4. So this is always an interesting release. They do throw out some really cool stuff on these releases, every release. So this one is, it's usually in preparation for end of year, updating certain various things. So there are some interesting releases, release notes that we'll go over on this. So let's see. Oh, there we go. Yes. So some of the highlights. Now, this is not all encompassing highlights of this release. Okay. It's more of a list of things that are more applicable to most of our clients. So, I didn't want to have, so case in point, they had a lot of releases for France, the country, France, the country, language speaking and whatnot. Not really applicable to our client role. So anyways, most of these that I've gone through are going to be more applicable to specifically our clients in the US. So at any rate, so now they've added a customer and vendor reconciliation report. This is pretty neat little tool, which we will go into showing what it will do. But it's really cool from the standpoint of now from a custom report that will have to be installed, you'll be able to see essentially how on one screen, on one report, what your payments for vendors and those original bills, how those are tied together. So as opposed to going from a check register, and drilling down into that to see what bills were paid via that payment, now on the reconciliation report, it kind of streamlines that to where you can see it all on one screen, if you will, in one report, to be able to say, hey, this one payment paid for 50 bills, if you will. So we'll go into that. I don't have a lot of examples in there, but I think we have enough to get the point across. There is now enhanced customization for AR statements. So I am not going to dive into this really heavy. Well, we'll just do the highlights and then we'll go tab by tab. How about that? Now there are certifications for Sage Intacct. I want to say it was for, I'll double check when I get to it. I want to say it was for the accounting certification in Sage Intacct. So you'd have to go to Sage University to get to that. But now that is available to customers to get certified. So yay that. And then there was the annual 1099 updates. We are not going over 1099s today. I promise. That is going to be a webinar that we do December 3rd is the last date that I had. So we are going to do a full out webinar as we do every year, going over your end of year processes and your 1099s. So we intend on having that added to our website, that webinar for 1099s, sometime next week. So check back in a week or two to our website and be sure you register for that. I know that's one of our most anticipated webinars of the year. So check back in next week, late next week, and it should be on our website for you to register to. And then also there's some new lists views in Intacct. So we'll go over that. I think they're kind of sweet, but we'll get to them. All right, so first thing, customer and vendor reconciliation reports. So yes, here's all the things, right? As I previously mentioned, it enables you to, via document sequencing, be able to link your payments to your bills on an actual report. Okay, so it's not everybody. 9 times out of 10, most of y'all know I come from the treasury world, and when you hear reconciliation, most accountants kind of partially throw up in their mouth. So this, however, is not definitively, hey, you're having to go through and do the reconciliation. The system is automatically, kind of like you would with, so the payments are linked to the AP bills anyways when you pay them. It's just now going to give an identifier to that payment as it corresponds back to the bill. Okay, so it's not I have to do some kind of in-depth reconciliation of it. If you are doing reconciliations of your vendors and your customers on the payments, this will help that though. Because again, Intacct's going to automatically show you how those are linked. So if you're the unfortunate ones that are going through those reconciliations, it will assist you on that. Enhanced customization for AR statements. So this was interesting. I have a screenshot of what it will do. I was not necessarily in our demo, or I apologize, in our preview company, I was not able to enable this. So what it really boils down to is there is a customization feature within Intacct for printed document templates. So in that customization, you can pop those templates out into Microsoft Word and do edits to those to customize what you want to present on your invoices and or statements. If you are unfamiliar with this, this is a super, super duper cool feature within Intacct that I firmly believe may not get discussed enough. I'm not sure if we've ever done a webinar on the customizations for printed documents. Definitely something that if we haven't, we'll probably do one next year. So we'll get into that. I'll touch on it just a little bit because it's kind of like, the rabbit hole of you go into it and now you're in a whole nother world of, oh my God, we could spend a month going through it. But super duper cool. So on this customization, now they've allowed for you to have a balance total, a running balance total on those statements for your customers. And so what that's going to essentially show is, hey, here's the invoice, here's specific payments, and then the reduction of the balances on those line by line. Case in point, this is what it will look like. Again, here's the customer, and you have, here's the invoice, the AR invoice, balance forward 0, but AR invoice. So it's going to give you your running tally of the balance by date, and then when those payments are applied, it's going to reduce your balance. So the nice thing is now you'll be able to produce an AR customer statement that will show the running balance of invoices and payments. So again, I couldn't replicate it in our preview company. That's normal for the normal in that it is a preview company and it doesn't have just all the functionality to it that they will do in the release. So nevertheless, after, I want to say the release is November 8th. So that Monday when you come in, all of these features should be available to you. Now, in order to get the balance on there, you will have to do some customizations to the document templates. We'll touch briefly on kind of what that looks like. And again, as I alluded to, we'll probably do a webinar on printed document templates, edits, and all the cool things you could do. I'm a firm believer in, if you use order entry and AR, you really need to understand how the printed document templates work, because it's a really cool tool that will enable you to, send out your own unique, customizable invoices and statements. So annual 1099 updates have happened. Well, will happen in this release in preparation for end of year. So just, your normal, all your 1099 forms. One of the changes that they did point out was there's no longer included a copy C, but now it prints a copy 1 and copy 2. So take that into consideration. Again, we will have a webinar in just over a month that's going to go really in depth on the 1099 reporting. And then, as always, with Intacct, we highly recommend, pushing and using the e-filing with Tax Bandits. Again, that's going to be something that we're going to go over in the next 1099 webinar. And I highly recommend everybody attending that one as well. New list. So cool things on the new list. So you've always been able to have customizable list views. What the new lists are going to do is you're able to do these I think it's easier to do the customization lists, and you're able to do some cool stuff like freeze columns. Love that little feature. We'll go over it, but inevitably, if you create a list view and I may have a lot of things in my list view, a lot of vendor record information in a list view. Y'all know I am a treasury nerd, so I will create a list view that will show me, which vendors are being paid via ACH, and then moreover, I may also have what their account or routing number is on those list views, so I don't have to drill down into them. The problem is when the more fields that you add to that list view, you kind of get lost in who is this for, right? We'll go over it. I'll show you kind of how that works of who is this for. So nevertheless, the freezing of the columns is going to be super cool when y'all see it here in a second. So with that, we're going to jump into the product. If I can ever figure out how on God's green earth to change my view. Uh-oh, I got a little carried away there. All right, Teresa, can you see my Sage Intacct screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, I have my moments. At any rate, so here we go. Actually, let me drag back over my PowerPoint so I can kind of scroll back through item by item as we were going through it. Okay, so first thing, customer and vendor reconciliation reports. So super cool reports, but there is some updates that some updates that you're going to have to make to the system in order to get these reconciliation reports. Okay, first step, number one thing is you will go and this is probably going to be an administrator that will have to do this, because in company under setups, you'll have document sequences. Okay. And so we have all of our document sequences here. We have a document sequencing for usually for what was it? AR. We'll have one. We'll have one for vendor IDs, right? So if you ever wondered, this is where all that lies, right? This is where it all lives on those document sequencings. So I created two. One is a AP payment to bills, and then I created another one that is AR payment to invoices. Now, pretty straightforward on these, in that I know it's going to tell me that, hey, you're going to affect all your future sequences. Nevertheless, as with Intacct, anything in Intacct, sequence ID has to be unique. Okay, so that's where I have my sequence ID. Sequence name, it duplicated it. I could have cleaned it up, but I didn't. On the sequences for the customer and vendor reconciliation reports, they have to be alpha. They cannot be numeric. Okay, so my primary sequence, the real thing is just saying, hey, I want it to start at A and I want it to go all the way to Z, 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 Z. Primary sequencing maximum, they say, is 16 characters. So that, believe it or not, I counted it, it is 16 Zs. So at any rate, once it gets to that ZZZ, that maximum, then it'll start back over. Okay, so you'll need to create those.
Nick,
Yes.
Nick, I'm so sorry. I had a quick question here. I just wanted to jump in and interrupt. So the question was, that came in was, do they have to type in all those Z's? And so I think I can answer this one for you here. So when you're setting up a new one, since this one's already set up, you can't see it, but when you set up a new one, it'll ask you the field link, so you can say 16, and then it'll populate that. So no, you don't have to count out and type out 16 Z's.
Right, because you may fall asleep, and then somebody will think you're catching Z's at work. Oh, anyways, all right. Dad jokes. Anyway, so there you have it. So that'll be creating the document sequencing, right? So I created one for AP, and then I also created one for AR. Okay. Next step is, and this will definitively have to be a system administrator that has to do this. I've already set it up for AP. So we'll go accounts payable setup and configuration. And then you'll scroll down. So there'll be a new little feature here about, what is that? 3/4 of the way down under your document sequencing. Again, I alluded to, we have almost all of our clients use vendor ID document sequencing, right? Now there is a vendor reconciliation. When you click this box, it will, guess what, enable it. And then you need to select your match sequence. Okay, so that's going to essentially turn that on in the configuration. Okay, so I'm going to do AR real quick because I have not turned it on for AR. So we'll scroll down to, where are you? Document sequencing. Okay, so case in point, customer reconciliation. We will turn that. Well, before I do that, I'm sorry, I'm putting the cart before the horse. In your menu under AR for all, there is not a customer reconciliation report anywhere to be found. Okay, that is because we have not enabled that functionality. So that is what we're going to do right now. We're going to turn that on, and we're going to go select our AR payment to invoices, and we'll hit save. Now, I still won't see it. You have to go into your company. Again, this is going to be an administrator that has to do it, and you have to enable that functionality for AR under the permissions. Okay, you should, there it is. So now under reports, there's a new little button that says customer reconciliation. I want to select that to run, and I'll hit save. You'll want to update any roles that you want people to be able to use this. Okay, But once that is enabled, then those users will have that. As with anything, whenever I'm updating permissions, after I hit save, I hit refresh on the browser. So now when we go down to AR, where is it? Oh, customer reconciliation. There it is. Okay, so that's getting it enabled and allowing users to use it. I have not done any bill payments because I just turned it on. So we'll look back at AP and look at the AP vendor reconciliation report just to give you some insight to kind of what this report is going to look like. Okay. I'm going to put this to 8/1/24 because I know I have some stuff there. And then we'll do the end datas today. Okay, so as with all the reports in Intacct, you have all your good little filters. Okay. Matches to display is going to be, do you want unmatched, partially matched, or fully matched, or all? Okay. So you can select them all, or just select just one or any kind of variance of that thereof. Include all vendors, include zero balance vendors with activity. I think that's a good one. I don't necessarily know if I want to include all my vendors. So at any rate, and then you can do the formatting by date. All right, so let's view this little guy. All right, so this is the one that I did it for, was for Massachusetts Department of Revenue. So now that you'll see a match sequence on it, on this report, and you'll see that, hey, here's A, and that corresponds to this A. So while this is the payment, and it was check number 1090, it corresponds back to this document, this AP bill, okay? And then B corresponds to the B's. So again, we issued a payment, then I reversed it, then I paid it again. So that corresponds to the AP bill of $780 that I paid yesterday. All on the same check, right? Because that payment's showing 1090, that's the check number. So again, super cool way of being able to go and say, hey, what tied back to what? Right? What tied back to those bills, I apologize. You could always click on that date and it'll open up your check register. That will show you your line items even, and show you, hey, this is what it paid. Okay, so this is doing the check register more so in detail, but it does give you that corresponding match sequence. That is super nice to know how those are being applied back to those bills. Okay. So same thing will be applicable to your AR. If you're applying payments to those invoices, it will do a match sequence, and then the report will reflect fairly similar to the vendor reconciliation in that it'll give you that corresponding match sequence. So cool. Again, so the next thing was that enhanced customization for AR statements. I, again, could not get that to necessarily work in my preview environment, but I will show you real quick. And again, I'm going to push for us to have a webinar on this because I think it's one of the really, really cool things in Intacct. Is your printed document templates. So when you go here, you'll see just, there's 49 in our preview environment, just a litany of different templates. What these templates essentially are, they're templates that can tie either to your system as a whole or individually to customers. So I think you can also do it for, yeah, that's OE. So it's mainly, case in point, OE and AR. Obviously, purchasing would be one of those as well. Not so much with AP because you're not producing an invoice. If you're in AP, you're receiving an invoice, so makes sense. From purchasing standpoint, it's usually a purchase rec. kind of situation. Nevertheless, so this is a super duper duper cool feature in using these. So case in point, I had this statement that I wanted to work on. Oop, I clicked on the wrong button. Oh Lord, did I just kill my Intacct? That's okay. Oh, there we go. So if you click on the statement, it'll download it in a Word document. So here is my Word document. Okay. So from this Word document, you can download, it's an Intacct tool. So obviously you need to check with IT to make sure you can add this add-in. But what the add-in is it's going to have essentially the database table fields that correspond to those records, right? So it's a means of saying, hey, I don't know the pure out gibberish of what that database field is, because when you look at, company address up here, right? Well, I would just type company address, but again, this links it back to Intacct to say, hey, go pull that company address 1, and then company address 2, and so on and so forth. So super cool feature. Again, we'll do a webinar on this to kind of go more in depth on the cool things you can do. But supposedly in the new release, they have a pre-entry balance that will give you a running total, as I showed on the PowerPoint, of what that running total will look like when you do a customer statement. Okay, so okay, and then the last thing is, in my nerdy little opinion, one of the cooler things. So we're going to go look at the new list views. All right, so vendors. So, so here's your normal run-of-the-mill vendor list. I'm going to switch that to all. And so actually, I am going to switch it back to AP vendors because I want to do something real quick. I'm going to edit this vendor list, which we've always been able to do, but I'm going to say select all. And I know that's crazy, but nevertheless, just hear me out on this. So now I have all the stuff. Ooh, I probably shouldn't have done that. Okay, sorry, there's tax ID. But as you can see, right, you're scrolling over, right? So if you need an in-depth list that has all kinds of craziness to it, what vendor did this associate with, right? So in the new list views, we'll switch that back off. And so on the new list views, you can turn on list beta interface. And so it's going to change kind of what you can do with this. Okay, couple of cool things. Hey, it's making this really short. I want the vendor name, so you can drag that out. You can adjust the column sizes. Okay, another cool feature on this is under vendor name, go to your setting and you can say text wrapping. I want you to go ahead and wrap that, and so it's going to wrap the text. So again, because I don't want to have to drag out that column, you still can, even on wrap text, right? So cool thing. Another thing is I would, in case in point, previously we saw, oh my God, you're scrolling forever to the right, and I don't know who that's applicable to. You can now freeze the columns. And so when you scroll over, those columns, it's just like in Excel, right? You're freezing your frames, right? So super duper cool in that. I can't tell you how many times I've created a custom list view and I go, what client was that? Or what vendor was that? I apologize. What vendor was that? So with the updated list views, you can start, doing your freeze and so on and so forth. As with all the list views forever that I can recall, you can always do filtering. One of the neat things on this is you can click on the filter icon and it contains, right? So on this, case in point, if I go Langer, Uh-oh, helps if I type it. So it's going to bring up that specific vendor, right? So in place of the percent sign for the wildcard search, right? Now you can add these different filters of contains, equal, da 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 da, so on and so forth, right? So you can do this on the fly, is what I'm kind of getting at. Is you can do those separate filters as you wish. If you're wanting to do a new view, the user interface, I think, is easier than what it was in that's currently there, in that, yes, you do have to create your view name, but instead of going to separate tabs for, hey, I want these columns, or I want, and then there's another one for filters and sort and da 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 da, right? From this one screen, sorry, drawing a blank, you can now customize those different things. So again, if I wanted vendor name to be wrap, I can set this specific view to have those predetermined settings, right? So if I wanted to add some fields, I could click on that, and then again, let me scroll down a little bit so it gets us some room. So again, this is where you can select all those different fields, if you will, right? So I do think that's kind of cool. The one drawback that I did see with this is previously on the old list view, I just selected all, right? Because I don't definitively know where the data lies for me. So it's kind of nice just to go select all, give me everything, right? I have not found a select all feature. So there is that one little caveat. But again, if you're adding those individual ones, it is kind of nice. Again, your fixed columns, you can freeze. How many columns do you want frozen, right? So you could select that from your creating your list view. You can add your various filters. You can do the show entity column that'll tell you where that, if you're assigning those vendors or customers for that matter to a specific entity, this is where you can show who that entity is applicable to, and then you can also update your various fields. To add them, you just come over here. If you need more, you just click on the little add or subtract. Okay, and your apply criteria is an and or. So it's as it relates to what you're filtering. Okay. And then you can do your different sort by. Again, you can add as many sort bys as you want, have those, and then your visibility. Do you want to hoard all the information of your list view and that you made your life easier, or do you want to make everybody's life a little bit easier if they needed that list view? So private as opposed to or public. And then you can just save that, and then that becomes, again, the new drop down from this list view. What I will say also is these views will carry over. So when you turn on the beta, all of your list views that were in prior to the non-beta will carry over to the beta. It will have those. Okay. So super duper cool, in my opinion. You can, and they kind of built this from the standpoint of, you might be able to replace, custom reports with these kind of list views, right? A lot of times you maybe wanted to do an export of all my vendors, right? And so, I know in other systems you'd have to have a report that generates that. In Intacct, while you can create a custom report that will pull this data for you of the vendor information, you can definitely do that in this list view, and then keep in mind you can export them to CSV, Excel, PDF, or Word. So I'm a big fan of that. That, hey, I don't have to create another report, right? I don't have to create umpteen jillion customer reports. I could just do a list view that will get me that kind of information. All right.
Hey,
Yes.
Nick, I just want to interrupt here. So one thing you didn't mention that's one of my favorite things on this is that column that says ledger there with that underscore. So if you click on that, that takes you directly to that AP ledger report for that bit already pre-filtered for that vendor. So I love the fact that that's now available right there. It's just a click through from that list view, and you don't have to go separately run that report. So I can run it for that vendor, see that ledger, close it, go look at my next one. So that's one of my favorite things that they've added in this custom list view or this beta list view. So that just wanted to point that out since you didn't mention that. That's one of my favorite things.
I missed that actually. So yes, that is one of my favorite things now. Hey, you can, have that AP ledger or AR ledger just by clicking on the, go figure, the ledger hyperlink.
Yeah. So
miracles.
Yeah, thank you.
So T, I guess on that also, it's going by the defaults. That's what it is. So that ledger is going by the default that I would have had set up in my when you run your ledger. So you could still customize that and go, hey, I want, current year, for instance, and then review that. But I guess it's going to trigger based on, I wonder, do you know
it does
will
current
trigger?
month, just like if you
It's
it
always
does
current month.
just based on
Okay. I know that sometimes, right? Sometimes, like on the general ledger, if you're not showing all of your, when you have the drill down into the general ledger, if you're not showing all of your dimensions, right? If you go update your general ledger report for those specific dimensions, then when you do drill down, it will show those. So it does remember that. I didn't know if the reporting periods were the same, and it's not, but that's okay. Nevertheless, there's a little reporting insight for everybody who joined. That was free of charge. So at any rate, so super cool. So with that, that's about where we're going to wrap on the 2024 release 4 highlights. Again, this comes out November 8th. I believe that, if I recall, that is a Friday. So don't work late that day. Hopefully you're not working late any of those days anymore, because Intacct's so awesome. But nevertheless, that will be the release. And then come that, what is it? The 11th, November the 11th, I think is that Monday. When you come in, these new updates will be available.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Can you show one more thing? Can you go to the homepage here on your preview, and just as a reminder, because we do have some people on here that are newer to Intacct. So just as a reminder, right here on the homepage, you can get to the release notes. Those are already available in your system now for the next release that's coming out. So you can see those already on Intacct, and when you log in on your homepage currently, so you can go ahead and see those release notes that are coming out for November 8th. As Nick mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot more stuff out there. We just kind of picked some of our favorite things, some of the things that we thought would most widely be used, but there may be some other things that you notice out there. You do need to filter it down, because with Intacct being an international product, they do often have releases that are specific to different countries. So you want to make sure you're looking at things that are specific to U.S. And not looking at Canadian or French or any of those other things. Australia, unless you're interested in what they're doing in Australia. So those release notes are out there. If you have any questions on any of the things that come up after the release, before the release, feel free to reach out to anyone on our team. We'll be happy to help you out. And then, as Nick mentioned, on December 3rd is going to be our year-end and 1099 webinar. Our emails for registering for that should be going out here in the next week or so. You can also check on our website. It's not been posted to our website yet, but should be here in the next week or so. But watch for that. Make sure you get registered for that one as well. That's an important one for reviewing 1099s. And then last, before we wrap up here, if you have any suggestions, we are starting to build out our calendar for webinars next year. So if there's something that you'd like to see, we love feedback. So we'd love any suggestions or thoughts, recommendations for anything that you would like to see covered in a webinar. And we will certainly take those into consideration as we're building out our schedule for next year. So thank you so much for attending. Have a great rest of your day and a happy Halloween. And we will see you on our next webinar. Thanks so much. Take care.